People just want good Star Wars. They might be getting it with High Republic, but they're not buying the High Republic.
Welcome to Unleashed. And don't forget to join us on Patreon for early access and exclusive content. Here are the guys.
Welcome to Unleashed. I'm James. Thanks for stopping by. Force push the like button. Hit the subscribe if you're new here. If you don't like this video, force push the dislike. Anyway, let's go on. Let's go on. Because after 12 years, I think
it is time.
Definitely time to talk about this. Legends. I think everyone at some point loved Legends, loved what Star Wars did, loved the old EU as it was referred to. I never considered it canon myself. I know George Lucas had different thoughts on it. A lot of it was not canon in his eyes either, but they existed. They were fun reads. There was a lot of fun reads. There were a lot of terrible reads, but there was a lot of fun reads with the old EU. But right off the bat, I want to say something. Hopefully I don't piss you off, but probably will, because some of you seem very sensitive. A lot of you not so much, but a few of you do. What I'm going to say here is, when it was first announced, I think in 2013, 14, whenever it was, they said, hey, Disney, that is, Lucasfilm, so we're going to distance ourselves. We're going to from the old EU. That's not canon. Not that it ever was, but they're going to say that's not canon. We're going to, let our storytellers start anew, start afresh. It's going to, I believe it was the 6 movies and the Clone Wars were what was canon. Nothing else mattered. Sorry, droids. Sorry, Ewoks. Sorry, my childhood. Nothing else mattered. But that, again, whatever. It is what it is. I'm fine with that. Because the reason why I was fine with that is because, okay, you have to have that almost pseudo fresh start, right? If you want to tell stories, you can't be handcuffed to a book that 77 people read. And that's not to say like a lot of the EU was highly read. I'm not saying that. I'm saying there was probably a book that 77 people read and something happened in that book and they're like, well, the events of that book we want to contradict. Now, obviously canon they have. Also, like when I'm discussing what I'm discussing, if you are watching this and paying attention, not basing your comments off of just the title alone, remember that I'm saying it like whatever you think of the Disney era of whatever we've gotten, that's a separate conversation than the one I'm having now. The one I'm having now is strictly about the old EU and why the EU needs to return, why Disney needs to bring the EU back. Whatever you think of what's happening that's not the case. And now I'm not saying the EU should be canon. It should not be canon. It should remain Legends, remain this, the thing on the side. And I'm not saying multiverse. I'm saying just what it is now. It's Legends, which is a great title for what it is. But when it was first announced that they were going to say, hey, no, I was right on board. I said, yeah, do it. And we got some good books. We got Lords of the Sith, which I thought was a phenomenal book. Still probably my favorite book of the Disney era. I haven't read High Republic. I am not, I haven't got into it. It was just so much to invest in. So I couldn't, so I just didn't. But I have heard a lot of good things about it from people who have read it. Not a lot of negative from people who have read it, but a lot of good from people who have read it. However, I will say not a lot of great necessarily, but a lot of good for whatever that's worth. But I haven't read that. But I was reading a lot. I think I was trying to read all of them when they first happened. I bought all these books for like a year or two. I'm like, I gotta read them all. I gotta read every single thing that they're shoving down my face. I gotta read them. And so I was. Aftermath, I thought was really that first book, man, was like, that was a chore to get through. Back then, it was I think you got the first 100 pages as a demo on iBooks, on Apple Books or whatever it was. So I was reading it on my iPad, and I'm like, this is tough to read. And you can go back. I said this on the channel 8 years ago, whenever it was. I said this back then. I'm like, it was a tough read. And my wife ended up surprising me with it. She bought me the hardcover of it. I'm like, ooh, and I read it, and past 100 pages, it was still tough. It got better. Nora Wexley is still the most frustrating character ever written in the history of Star Wars. And I guess now that might be controversial or a hot take. But back then, like her death was faked 400,000 times. Every chapter ended with a Nora saw black or Nora's pod was hit, and you're like, is she dead? No, she's not dead. It was very frustrating. I thought those books got a lot better as it went on. They would have been better, the whole series, and I actually don't blame Chuck Wendig for this, is those books would have been a lot better had the sequels had a plan, right? If the sequels were planned out, then those books would have known what they were about. But like when it started, they're like, this is the journey to the Force Awakens. And you start reading and you go, no, it's not. This is not the journey to the Force Awakens at all. What's going on here? So anyway, that's how it was. But I was still on board with it, even though a lot of people were complaining like the EU books were better, and probably, I mean, per capita and all that, it probably even out that they were better. But that being said, we got what we got. But now we're so far along on this trail of Star Wars, like High Republic. The numbers weren't great. Like I said, a lot of people said it was good. Not a lot of people saying it's great, phenomenal. Like no one has told me you've got to go read this High Republic book. I've never gotten that. Not this comic, not this book. No, I haven't got it. If someone said this is the one you have to go and read this, I would probably pick that book up. But I haven't heard that. I've heard that's good.
It's good. It's good. It's good.
It's good. And I don't think that's a knock. I think good is fine, especially for a book. Like that's, I mean, a lot of the, like I said, a lot of legends I thought were like that. I view a lot of the Disney Plus shows as I viewed those books back in the 90s, where it's like, yeah, it's a side story. That's fine. That's fine. Maybe I should change my stance on that. We'll talk about that another time. Maybe I should, maybe I shouldn't. But the reason why now I think it's time to bring the EU back, it is time for the EU to return, is because we are 12 years into this Disney era, and canon is and I've said this a lot too, but canon is a handcuff, right? It handcuffs the writers, the authors, the storytellers. Now, when you're doing stuff on Disney Plus or theatrical, handcuff away. The canon matters, right? Everything's got to be plotted out. But when you're telling a story in a book, sometimes I just want to read a Darth Maul novel. Sometimes I just want to read an Obi-Wan Kenobi novel. And I don't care when I'm reading those novels how it fits in to the Phantom Menace or how it fits in to A New Hope. I don't care. All I care about is this. I love this character. Take me on a journey with this character. Any journey at all. I want to read it. It doesn't have to connect to anything. And it doesn't have to be canon. It can just be a fun story. And that's how I read a lot of the EU now. Well, that's how I have to read a lot of the EU now, is it's just a fun story.
It's so much fun, Chan. Get it?
Fun little side story for me to get my Star Wars fix on when I'm not getting it on the now one show a year, and we haven't had a movie in forever. And that's how it is. And I think why I'm saying the EU is let authors come in who have an idea for Obi-Wan, for Anakin, for whoever, and they're like, but it doesn't really fit in what you're doing, but I have this cool story. And if it's good, just do it and put the Legends label on it. I don't understand why the EU couldn't continue. Except I do understand, because if the EU continues, if they keep telling stories in the old EU, and you have the Solo twins, and you have Mara Jade, and people gravitate to those characters more and enjoy those characters and their storylines and their books more than you're getting from the Rey, from Ben, from the High Republic characters, all of a sudden that's an issue, right? Because now you're saying, oh, you like this stuff better than stuff we're giving you, because they want you to like the stuff they're giving you. That makes complete sense. They don't want you to buy someone else's brand. However, they own that other thing. So who cares? Money's money, right? That's the one issue I could see with them having with allowing the EU stories to continue. So if you don't want the Solo twins to come along, don't use the Solo twins. Use Ben Solo. Use Kylo Ren, Rey, Finn, Poe. Continue stories with those characters in Legends form that are side. Or you mix it all. Could you imagine if they mixed everything somehow? I don't know how that would or could work. I'm sure somebody out there could do it. It's not me. But I think they need to go back and need to continue the stories. I would say continue with the Solo twins and Mara Jade. If you, I know George Lucas hated Mara Jade, but continue Mara Jade if you want. And then you can also do more stories with Rey, Finn, Poe, Kylo, and all them, and you can have them all going on at the same time, and they don't even have to connect. They could be whatever you want them to be. I just think it's time that we sit down and we accept that canon is fine to a degree, to a point. It's fine. Like Cal Kestis can live in the timeline, but also I think video games are getting handcuffed too now. Who cares? Like if you're playing a video game versus watching a movie, who cares? Like who cares? It's fun to think that you're a part of the story, but you're already a part of a story in a video game. So if you need to do something that, and we've seen canon. If you need to see something progress in it, whatever, fine. But we've seen canon be broken within canon already. They did it with the Bad Batch, and everyone freaked out like this. And nobody read the Kanan comic, and I know that because they discontinued the Kanan comic. And I picked up the graphic novel of the Kanan comic at a dollar store.
Oh, as if.
That is how I know that nobody read that comic. No disrespect to the comic. It's actually a very good comic. You should probably read that comic if you like Kanan, if you like Star Wars, if you like Rebels. It's very good. But that part in the Bad Batch that they retconned, I read the comic before I saw that episode of the Bad Batch. I completely forgot about it. Doesn't matter. Kiadi-Mundi's birthday, don't care. Don't care. If you care, I appreciate that you have a high level of concern of birthdays and Star Wars, but that's not something I'm concerned with. And I understand some of the complaint. I just think it's not rational. Like just let it go. It was a stupid cameo in a stupid show that stupid people watch, and I watched it, so I'm calling myself stupid. Don't come at me.
Stupid is stupid does, Mrs. Blue.
But I think it's time to bring the EU in. Let them in. Those stories were rich and vibrant, and I know you don't want to continue the stories in the movie form and be like, well, you had to read this book that was written in 1997 to understand what's happening in this movie that's coming out in 2050. I completely understand that. But we're well beyond that now. People just want good Star Wars. They might be getting it with High Republic, but they're not buying the High Republic. They might be getting it with the shows on Disney Plus, but the Acolyte was just canceled and or had low ratings. They're not getting that on Disney Plus as far as they're concerned. But if you bring back Legend stuff, if you're like, here's another story with the Solo Twins, it comes out of nowhere, I think people will appreciate that. I think they really will. They'll be like, oh, there's a new book from, I don't know, James Luceno or someone. Another Plagueis book, something like that. Like, it doesn't have to be canon. I'm not saying that. I'm saying keep it Legends, keep it EU, but keep it going. People were invested. Like, I wasn't invested at all. So when they scrapped it, I was fine because I understood the storytelling necessity that it had. But now it's like, why don't you just keep it going? You can have two halves going, and again, if you like the Solo Twins more than you like Rey and Ben, Disney can see that as a problem. But guess what? You've ended the Rey and Ben storyline, and I know the Reylo fans don't want to hear that. But I don't know. It doesn't seem like there's any plan in resurrecting any of that. No pun intended. Like, it doesn't seem like that's the case. It seems like they're done with that, for better or worse. And so if they're done with, why don't you bring that in? People like that. Bring it in. Do it. And you know what? If you want, have a writer come in and do a Ben Solo or Rey book, because I guarantee you there's a writer who could have had that done yesterday. People are all, like, these new characters, people on YouTube and what they like to piss all over these new characters, but people they adore the new characters. They adored Rey, Kylo, Finn, Poe after The Force Awakens. Last Jedi, a lot of things changed, but if you recall, the marketing for Star Wars was all Vader forever, and then it was Rey. And Rey was so popular that people complained that she wasn't a part of Star Wars Monopoly, and they ended up mailing out a Rey figure for you to be if you played Star Wars Monopoly. I have that Rey figure. I went to the site and I typed it all in and I got it. Because why not? I don't understand why there was no Leia. It was a weird choice of characters that they put on there. But the point is, people forget how much people loved Rey after The Force Awakens. There's this weird agenda that they want to take away how much people were ready. I believe after The Force Awakens, people were ready to follow Rey. They were ready to have Rey be. This is going to sound like a hot take, but I think if you step back and listen to what I'm going to say, I think you might agree. I think people were ready to accept Rey as the new Luke. But I think what happened was most of those people who were only ready to really accept, who were ready to accept Rey, but on those on the to replace Luke. When they got the Luke that they got, that wasn't their Luke. And then they viewed it as, okay, now they're forcing me to accept Rey. And then you get hotheads prevail. You feel like you're being attacked and you're being told what to like. And that's when things started to get skewed and changed. And people started not really appreciating Rey. And I know the Rey Mary Sue stuff was there a little bit before. I'm not a big fan. I'm not a big fan, and I never liked her using the Jedi mind trick when she used it. I thought that was weird because there was never a point in the movie where we were led to believe or have an understanding that she knew anything about the Force, about the Jedi, and about how those things worked. And yet she knew immediately how to do a Jedi mind trick. And that's part of my problem with the writing of the sequels, was that I think it was written from a fan's perspective almost. I know it was Kasdan who wrote Empire and Jedi, but it felt a lot like it was written from almost like they knew the information instead of we need to understand the information. But that again is a story for another day. But I think like Rey, I think people forget how ready they were to get on the Rey train and to go along with this character. And then Last Jedi kind of pulled the rug out from a lot of people, and their opinions of Rey changed greatly. But I still think Daisy Ridley was great. That's why I think the Rey movie, if it ever happens in any capacity, I think it could be great. But I also think that's why Rey novels could also be good. I think you could flesh a lot of that stuff out. You can give me a Rey novel and explain how the hell she knew that stuff. That could be canon, though. That could be canon. But I'm saying the EU stuff, it's time now. I think it's time. I think The Acolyte is the first show to get canceled. First Star Wars show to get canceled on Disney Plus. The ratings of Andor and of Acolyte have been pretty terrible. I don't know if Ahsoka, can't remember Ahsoka, but I don't think it was great. Like the ratings haven't been spectacular for Star Wars. Right. And the last time, and I was looking back at some videos, just looking to see what have been working and whatnot. And last year on Digital Charcuterie, I did a lot of theory videos for Mandalorian season 3.
This is the way.
And Mandalorian season 3 was a season that not a lot of people liked.
This is the way.
I very much enjoyed that season, but a lot of people didn't like that season. But the theory videos all did very well.
This is the way.
For the most, well, shouldn't say all, but most of them did very well. Like there's some of the highest videos that I've had in years on that channel. On both channels combined were theory videos from Mandalorian season 3. So it shows that people have an interest in what they're getting still. But I don't think there was an interest. Like I didn't do any for Ahsoka. I don't think there was an interest for Ahsoka. There wasn't an interest in Andor speculation. I think Andor though was because of the grounded nature of the show, and it was a little bit different. I feel like that's how it was, because I do feel like Andor is the strongest show. Mando is my favorite, but I think that is there. But it's showing that there is, and even my Boba Fett videos for Mando season 3, that when I talked about possibly Boba Fett coming in, they did very well as well. So I think there's still a hunger for Boba Fett and Mandalorian. But I also feel like those shows, we felt like the audience, I should say, felt like they knew the direction of the shows, even though Mandalorian season 3 was a lot of people said they didn't feel like it had a direction.
I knew I should have taken that left turn at Albuquerque.
Which I always thought it did. I think people, because those shows feel like they have a direction, you can speculate a lot more, which you can't now. And that takes away a lot of the fun. But I think it's, because these shows aren't doing so well, you've lost a lot of goodwill with fans, even the not so negative fans, right? The fans who have been supportive are kind of like the Acolyte. And the thing with Andor is Andor didn't have the vitriol that Acolyte had, but it still kind of split the fans. Like there's a lot of fans that were like, this isn't very Star Wars. I don't know if this feels Star Wars to me. There was a lot of that. I mean, but it's not everywhere, because it didn't, for some reason, it wasn't popular to tout that on social media or on YouTube, but that was out there. That was a feeling that was out there. It wasn't very Star Wars. We had our first Earth basic swear word and all that in there, and people were like B2 emo, I think that was his name, felt more like Doctor Who than Star Wars, and you heard a lot of things like that. But it was kind of like, it was quieter, a lot quieter. But I think the ratings obviously showed that people weren't watching Andor, whether it was because they knew that he died in the end or not, I don't know. But you have that. But I think because of where Star Wars is, it feels like we're at we're at a very low right now. Possibly the lowest Star Wars has been in a long time. Maybe if social media was around for the Phantom Menace, maybe that's where we'd be, even though we knew we were getting Attack of the Clones.
Power!
But I feel like we're at a very low point. And I think and I've said this in another video, but I think Mando and Grogu, that movie is coming because that's the one that they feel is going to appease the fans, right? That's a surefire bet. They're like, we got this in our back pocket. People are going to gravitate to this. And that might be the case, it might not be. I'm not sure. But you're at a point now where you want to win fans back, like the fans that you've had. Because you forget that they need the old fan. The reason why they need the old fans is because old fans are the ones that are giving them the money. Like, it's guaranteed money. If you don't have the guaranteed money, then you're banking on new money. You want to bring back some of that guaranteed money, just do a book. EU, bring back the EU, call it the EU Legends, and have a good time with it. I think you're going to get a lot of views. People are going to. I can't see it being worse than, and when I say worse, I mean the numbers, like the amount of books sold. It can't be much worse than have been going on. And it could only make good, better stories, and maybe even more stories that you can piggyback on for future movies and TV shows. And that being said, here's another video that we'll do down the road: is why aren't they making TV series based on old Legends books? I know Kathleen Kennedy said we don't have the books that we can. That's another video for another time. This is Unleashed. You're watching the Rebel Scum podcast. Like, subscribe, do it all. We're here every week, bringing what you love, doing it for 8 years. Thanks for watching, everybody. Give us a like and a subscribe. And until next time, may the force of others be with you.
Hey scumbags, thanks for watching. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up on our video. As always, please subscribe to our YouTube channel, Rebel Scum Podcast, for all the latest videos.